Right.
If there was a powerful drug that, didn't have side effects, didn't have, it was cost effective and 100% slowed my progression and stopped it, I'd take it. And I tell people
Right.
that.
Right.
But I might not have to take it because I'm like, well, I believe in the strategies, the science-based strategies, nutrition, exercise, vitamin D that I'm implementing. And here I am today.
Hello, I am Kathy Chester, and this is Move It or Lose It, a podcast about all things that move the mind, body, spirit, and soul.
So today we have Mathew Embry with us. So a podcast interview that I've been very excited to do. So most of you in the MS community know Mathew Embry. We know the movie, we know the book, the new cookbook, we know his face. We know that he comes on Instagram Live and gives us an inspiring, sometimes a message that kind of hits me right here. And I think, oh gosh, did I do that today? What do I need to do better? So without further ado, welcome Mathew to Move It or Lose It podcast, where we talk about all ways to move our bodies. And so we are really excited to have you today. So welcome, Mathew.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for having me on the show and bringing more exposure to the message. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that is, I know your biggest thing and mine is bringing awareness about MS and about movement and how important that is to our bodies, for our bodies, and for multiple sclerosis and all autoimmune diseases. But today we are going to focus on MS. So I want you to talk about your diagnosis. And I know with the movie, I know so many people know the big things, the diagnosis at 19, but I want you to talk about for so many of our young people that are getting diagnosed early, that feeling that because they see you running, they see you doing all this stuff. And I know you're always great to explain, no, this isn't easy. And I do the same thing, that I don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to tackle that hill today. I'm going to tackle that 5 miles. But I know that I'm going to feel better when I do it. So talk about when you're diagnosed early, how do you get past that fear and knowing that I've got to move?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think that it is really important for people who are early diagnosed. For anybody who's diagnosed, but especially for people who have just been diagnosed, to start questioning their perspectives and their approach as soon as possible.
Right.
And I think that, people are, I don't know the exact numbers, but the diagnostics, how being able to diagnose with people with MS has gotten a lot easier, right? With MRIs, and it's a lot easier to get diagnosed quicker in today's world, which I guess means that you're going to have a lot more younger people get diagnosed.
Right.
And so I think that's the case. And I think that, if we go back to the genesis of MS Hope, it really was, in many ways, I created it for those people who were newly diagnosed, for that first Google search. And, the website pops up and they're like, oh, who's this guy? Right.
And I go back and say, when did you create that? What year was that?
Yeah, I think that was back in 2014. I think it went live. I believe that's when it went live. Again,
who don't know, it'll be at the bottom of the show notes. So go to that.
Yeah, and the intent was for that newly diagnosed person to log on and go, wow, this guy has been diagnosed for, at that time it was just over 20 years. Now it's over 26 years.
Right.
And he's still living a fantastic life. But I do tell people, one perspective I do have is like, once you've seen that, that's where the hope stops. Okay. Because now you've seen the hope. Now it's time for you to implement, to see, okay, what's possible. And I hope that's what my story is. It's about possibilities.
Absolutely.
it's about showing young people and older people, doesn't matter, that just because you've been diagnosed with something, a disease, or you've been labeled, it doesn't mean that you can't take your life to the next level, and not only achieve optimal health for you, but to be a beacon of that to your peers and the people around you, despite the fact that you've been diagnosed with MS or whatever autoimmune disease.
Yeah, and really thrive. And it's something that I know you and I have shared, and I've heard you say, and I say that it doesn't define us. And I know sometimes that feels overplayed, but it doesn't have to define us. I remember early on in my runs, I would do a half marathon, and I would have the different sponsors, and they would say, wait, we're supposed to do this for you. And I would say, no way. As long as these feet run, I will continue to do this.
Right.
And I do for the people who can't do it, who were diagnosed long ago when you were told to rest, and
Right.
which I know never made sense for you. And I know
No.
we were both diagnosed around the same time, and didn't make sense for me. And as a young person who always was full of activity and sports, just couldn't make sense of, I was different from you. I didn't have that support. So let's talk about that. So newly diagnosed. So I was newly diagnosed, a very different situation. So I didn't have that support that you did. I didn't have that family support. So you did. You had a remarkable support team. So talk to the person like me, who I went really from my gut instincts and what made sense to me. Thank God I did. But the newly diagnosed person who's very afraid and doesn't have that support team, where would you send them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question, because every individual has a different circumstance. I think that one thing I would talk about for people is that you have to be, I believe, in this life, really open to the support as it comes, and I do think it comes in different forms. So in my case, I obviously had two parents who were really greatly involved, and my mother had a medical background and my father had a research background. And that was, for me, ultimately, it wasn't just for me though, was it?
Oh.
Right. I mean, the guy obviously was a flashpoint for that story, but now it's obviously taken on a global significance.
Absolutely.
So I mean, yes, of course, I'm blessed and very thankful and grateful for the immediate support that I had. But at the same time, that same support structure has now come in a different form to the world, and whether that be through the movie or the documentary or the book my mother wrote, or the websites and the charities they did. So I would say to people, I say, look, like in the end, it really comes down to you. I mean, you can have the support structures around you who are going to say, okay, here's the roadmap, here, but you're going to have to do the reading. And you're going to have to be the one to eat the diet. You're going to have to be the one to do the exercise. And, I did a run. I think I posted about it. I did a run to yesterday. It was at 4:30 in the morning. I was meeting a friend's train, and nobody got me up. There's nobody who was like, Matthew, it's time to get up. Here's your coffee. Like, there's nobody there. It's you, and that's that's a hard reality I think people need to face. And I think that I agree with you, that newly diagnosed person, you need those people around you. And it's obviously really challenging if you don't have those immediate support structures. Hopefully we're creating assets and things like that to be able to help people in that regard. But ultimately, and I'd say I'd throw it to you too. I mean, the question is, that real support is going to have to come in from inside. Not real support, but that's a bad word. What am I looking for? Real kind of, not encouragement, but the foundation.
Right. Because there's times when, as you know, it can be a very isolating disease, no matter how many loved ones we do have. And even though we have our spouses, and you and I both have that, and we have our children, No one goes in to make that decision to do that workout, to do that run when our bodies don't want to do it, when our bodies are like, not today. And we make that decision, yes, today. Today I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move. That's a decision that has to be from here to here. And no matter how much that mom, dad, friend says, you can do it, you can do it. If we're not going to choose to do it, then it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
So, and I think that that's where we come in, to be those Instagram people that want encourage and say, yes, you can. And so if family's not there to encourage, that's where we're trying to come on more and say, this is what we want to do. We want to help you. We want to encourage you. We want to tell you the benefits of it and why it's so important. So, which you've done a great job. And with the movie was so incredibly inspiring, and really shared so much about, your early diagnosis and what that felt like. And I mean, and still, how much would you say, how many times a day do you still get emails from people who are newly diagnosed that have seen the movie?
Oh man. Oh wow. I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I've gotten to the point now I need to put an auto reply on Facebook Messenger, because I can't keep up. I mean, I could, but I've got a lot of other responsibilities in my life, and I've got to be really mindful of where my energy goes these days. So I mean, it ebbs and flows too, where suddenly another one country it starts to pop. And then all of a sudden, all these people from Germany contact me, or from Russia, or from Bulgaria. Like it just kind of it's ongoing, and I really feel that right now, again, we're doing like multiple languages. There'll be various languages for the website, translations for the cookbook. That these types of things are happening now. So to answer your question, the volume is significant. It's global. It's a blessing in a way, but I only have so much time, and that's where we've opened up different things we're doing now to be able to reach people and try to aggregate all those questions and consolidate the information. And in the new year, I'm going to be creating a whole catalog of kind of FAQ videos.
Okay, so you went ahead of me. That's where I wanted to ask. In the new year, where are you going?
Yeah, so like it'd be FAQ, like frequently asked questions. So it's like the whole catalog of them will exist on YouTube and things like that. So it's like, can I have beans? No. Here's why. Click on it, watch it.
Yeah, I love that, because even I was looking at stuff. I was like, I didn't even know I could. Okay. So yeah, I like that, and I like the idea that you're answering why, because I think there's a lot of, I get that all the time. Where you become, I'm trainer, counselor, I'm everything. So I think that that's a great, I'm the dietitian, the everything. And I know that is, you become all of those things. So when you, my other question to you was, did you ever have an idea of acting before you did the movie? Was that ever kind of in you? How do you mean? Silly kid, were you, acting as a kid? Was that ever something you wanted to do?
Like the movie?
Yeah, before the movie, was that ever something? Yeah,
I mean, that's my job. I mean, I've been making movies since I was like really little, little.
So
but there was no, I mean, but it was a documentary. So, I mean, it was kind of like what we did, Living Proof. So I'd already had quite a resume in Canada of doing, relatively high profile films up here.
I saw some in resume film.
Yeah.
So is yourself doing another one next? Do you already have an idea?
For Living Proof 2?
A different movie, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had numerous films come out since Living Proof, but the Living Proof 2 will start production. We've already started production. We've already started shooting. So that's on the way, probably within 2 years. But again, Living Proof 1, it's still going. Like it's got a long tail, right? So it's I don't know. I mean, to be totally honest, I haven't, given an interview, like I haven't talked about this yet, but it's really weird. Like recently, since the movie's gone, so it's just taken on its own life. My interest in filmmaking has really dropped off, which is really weird for me because it was such a drive for 40 years of my
Right.
life.
That's what I was
Um,
asking, because I saw that was a drive for you earlier. And now
yeah.
I know if you're doing it, I wondered if it was kind of coming back, like something you wanted to do again.
Well, that's the weird thing. It's been a really weird transition in my life, and I don't really know how to make sense of it because I was just talking to people, I've been talking about this recently with people close to me where it's so weird where you have this drive to do something for 40 years and all of a sudden it
Right.
goes away.
Right.
And so you're like, well, on one level, you're like, was it only to make living proof? Like,
Yeah.
was that the whole purpose of having
Right.
that desire, right? And then once that
Right.
movie came out, it was like, wow, you know, and
So God,
it's hard not to see that because I think I've had 3 films after, all 3 of which they're not necessarily bombed, but
right.
it's been really challenging to get them seen, and they're good movies. And I think that
Right.
God's pushing me to be like, well, Matthew, you got to focus on
Yeah.
maybe on why you're here, and that's
Right.
that's
Oh, I know, Matthew. I have got to do that where I'm like, wait, maybe you need my help on this one
yeah.
but it is interesting. And now when you are talking about living proof, will that continue to be more of a documentary for you?
Yeah, it's a documentary.
The same for the second one, the same.
Yeah, so it'll pick up where Living Proof left
Yeah.
off.
Okay.
That's the idea, and then explore some other things in depth that we didn't get to in the first movie. We shot like there's characters that didn't even make it to the screen. There's stories. There's all sorts of stuff that didn't happen. So I've already have a huge amount shot. So it's just
Right.
picking up some more things.
Yeah. So now, a question that I'm sure you've already been, but what made you totally fly in the face, go against neurologists and back in the 90s and go a different route? What was that?
Well, I mean, again, I was really lucky. I mean, my dad is well, there's a few things, there's a few things. And I've only given this on one other interview where a month before I had
I
my
feel
first,
so lucky that you're doing this
yeah,
with me.
yeah. Well, a month before I was diagnosed, okay, a month before I had my first attack, I heard this. It wasn't like a voice, but I had this enormous sense to change my diet.
Mhm.
Like, I can't explain it, but it was in May. I do remember this, and it was this: you've got to change your diet. It was almost like a voice was like convicting me. Okay.
Thank
And
God.
then, yeah, and then a month later I had my attack, and then we were driving in the car on the way home. I was with my parents, and I think my mom said then, I can't recall for sure, I think she said this has to have something to do with diet. And then my dad jumped into the medical research and started going. And within a few weeks, the conclusion was we were going to change my diet. And there was also some serendipitous things that happened as well. Like a teacher contacted me with some of Dr. Roy Swank's work and things like that. So it was this huge amount of synchronicities, and
Right.
information came to us. My dad ended up running into a high school buddy who led us to a specific naturopath doctor, like all this stuff, right? And I'm the kind of person, it's probably like you. Like I was able to kind of see the issue. I did, I did as much research as I could at the time. Like
Right.
I'm not gifted that way at all, but I am smart enough to understand how nutrition works in a way. And I looked at the alternatives, and unlike it is today, there also weren't a lot of pharmacological options.
Right. For sure.
So I didn't necessarily have to, that
Right.
wasn't a huge question back then.
Right.
But then once my brain twigged to, certain foods, eliminating certain foods, and putting exercise in, and then later vitamin D, it just,
Right.
for me, it was, I could take control of my illness. I could take control of my body. I could take control of what I ate.
Right.
And I was skeptical of some of the practices that were going on for MS, and I wasn't seeing the outcomes.
Right.
So it's like, show me the person who's been on that drug for 25 years. Show me them running marathons. Like,
Right.
who are they? And back then I wasn't seeing it.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe they exist now.
Right.
I've done a call out to meet them, but I've yet to be contacted.
I mean, I was on Embry for a long time and I did very well with it, but my body has rejected it after a long time. It was a very long time my body rejected it. And now the medication I'm on, I don't like it. So I'm very much going, really praying about going off of all of it. And so that will be a big decision.
Yeah, and I think our message is we never tell anyone not to take a drug.
Right. No,
like,
I know
ever. That. And we never do. And I think that people have to make their own personal decisions.
Yeah. I think you come to a place of that, whether I know a lot of new patients decide that right away. And early on, I'm always very obedient to, instructions to my elders. And I did that. I did the medication, the sleep aids that took forever to get off, and all of those things. And when you were given, I talked about this in the podcast that I did on my own. I talked about, what doctor gives you glossy pamphlets and says you choose, and knowing nothing about them. A cardiologist didn't do that. So that was back, in the 90s when they were there. So, and I do believe that eventually your body does reject the medication. And so I'm getting there to a place where I'm ready to go natural completely. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't comment on what the body will do to the drugs. I don't necessarily know. And again, what I try to tell people is, look, I mean, you got to do your own research, and you got to decide what's working for you and what's not. And the one thing that does bother me is, people try to pigeonhole me as being anti-pharma and things like that, and I'm like, I'm just not. Like, if there was a powerful drug that didn't have side effects, didn't have, it was cost effective and 100% slowed my progression and stopped it, I'd take it. And I tell people that.
Right.
But I might not have to take it because I'm like, well, I believe in the strategies, the science-based strategies of nutrition, exercise, vitamin D that I'm implementing. And here I am today. Right.
Now, how much bad emails do you get about that versus the good emails?
You know what? I mean, it's the vast majority are fantastic emails and encouraging and support. I mean, I there's no question I get a few zingers, right?
Oh yeah.
And I sometimes, it boggles my mind sometimes, like, why would someone sit down on a Sunday morning and like,
and decide I'm gonna just blast you today.
I'm gonna lay out this guy with MS, like,
right.
But I just kind of see it as a challenge from God, and can I be graceful? Can I be loving? Can I be patient? Absolutely. And can I respond?
Share faith. So that's that always gets me first. I read something and I think, and then I think, breathe, pray, and how would I respond? God, give me the words to say.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that
always
person's obviously suffering, right?
Get through this without God. I don't know, but that is, I think that our faith not only connected me to you immediately when I saw you, and I think the first time was before COVID, and then just was so inspired by your message and what you do, and and I don't get a lot of ability to see. Really, during COVID was the first time for me I got to connect with a lot of people that were on Instagram, because before then, owning my own business, my own gym, I just didn't have time to do. The most advocating I could do was really motion and movement, and that has always been my biggest thing. And then moving into diet, and but more movement than anything, and making sure that our younger people and that my clients knew that movement has to happen. Doesn't need to be high impact, but movement must happen. So that has always been mine, and listening to yours and adding the diet. I don't have the cookbook yet, so I need to get that.
All right. You can download a free one right away. There's a free
Okay.
PDF you can download while you wait for the hard copy to come.
Yeah, I'll do that for sure. Tell me, Matt, what is your favorite breakfast one in the cookbook?
Oh man, to be honest, I couldn't quote it from the cookbook.
Well, the breakfast for me is a tough one. I think for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously a smoothie kind of person most days.
Yeah.
But I also just, last week in particular, I've just been eating chicken salad for breakfast, right?
I love chicken salad.
And I think that, I just had seaweed soup, which is fantastic. And I don't really see, I understand in the West, we see breakfast like in a certain way, like hash browns or, waffles or whatever.
Right.
But I just don't see it like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of see it like, what does my body need and what's available? Right. And, I just kind of disrupt those patterns.
Right.
But I kind of do that in all areas of life. It's not just,
right.
I kind of I challenge.
Is my favorite word. So.
Pardon me?
Disrupt is my favorite word.
Yeah, I kind of challenge the norms, and I'm like, well, why do I have to live like that? Like, why do I need a weekend? And it's like, I think the world tries to shape you in a way to so you live a certain life.
Yes.
But when you end up sick, you're like, wait a minute.
Right.
Like that life didn't work. So then then it's now how you got to change everything, right? Not everything, but most things to figure out.
And I could see you doing this. I always say, who's they? And they always laugh. And I just am asking, who is they?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I literally, I think 2 weeks ago, I said to someone, if someone starts blaming they in a conversation, get out of it and leave as soon as possible. Right? Because now they're bringing in some sort of dark force or something. You're like, what are you talking about? Like, get out of here. I got stuff to do.
So for those in the West who typically would do the hash brown, eggs, unfortunately, I'm allergic to eggs, which is so depressing. What would you say? Because not oats, you don't do oats. No. What would be your breakfast, your go-to?
Yeah, I mean, go-to, I don't know, usually a big smoothie, and that's, I'm right now, I'm not eating any fruit right now. So, they're pretty plain, they're pretty plain. But I'll just have, sometimes I have a little bit of rice, and sometimes I'll have salmon, sometimes I will have sausages. I mean, every so often to get the protein up. It really varies. I mean, I can't tell you it's too consistent.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I skip it altogether. Like, I haven't even eaten breakfast yet today.
Right.
It's already noon,
Right. No, I haven't either. So I'll eat something for lunch. Now for lunch, give me an idea, Mathew Embry's lunch today. What are you going to have for lunch?
No, it'll likely be a salad. I think whatever's up there. Yeah, salad almost every day. Almost every single day.
Put some chicken in it.
Yeah, or tuna or fish and things like that, and then maybe a little bit of rice, but very rarely. I mean, normally it's
I'll show you a picture after we're done, but our garden in the back has gone bananas. So I've been able to pick our own strawberries and lettuce and all of our stuff back there.
Awesome.
So that's been cool. So our salads have been amazing. So I'm sure you have that and where you are probably.
No, not really. I mean, we have really harsh winters, right? And
well, Michigan is bananas. So
yes. So, and we're not necessarily, we're at that, our kids are kind of midstream. So it's real busy. So to tend a garden with 2 dogs and the house is like, oh man. So
now
I'd love to, but
you got a daughter and two girls?
No, I have a daughter and a son and 2 dogs.
And their ages?
She's almost 13 and my son's 11.
And she's quite a cook, right? She likes to cook for you.
Yeah, she's fantastic. she's very gifted that way. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And actually we're going to be working together on a second cookbook, and
Okay.
she'll be kind of not the lead on it, but really, she's going to be kind of the driving force, I think, behind it.
That.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah,
So what is it that you've been able to teach them about multiple sclerosis and leading the way and really teaching them about overcoming things that come in?
Yeah, you know what? That's what I'm recognizing now as they get older, is that you by example. Like
Yes.
you got to live it, right? And when you live it, you see the impact.
Yes.
Because I don't really lecture on it, but I live it, and they know it, and they're getting to the age where, I know they're doing it. They compare me to the parents. They're getting smart enough to figure out, okay, something's different about dad, and why. And not only is it different, but man, like I think I want that, right? I want that life. I want that health. I want that vitality.
Right.
And then what do I need to do to implement it? Like, what do I need to actually do to get it? So we've got a gym. I got a gym in the basement we built out, and like they use it, and like they eat well, and they're not as strict as me, no question.
Right.
But they certainly make choices, and I know it, and I see it.
I think that absolutely. I think you're right. My kids are older. I started a little bit younger than you. And
Okay.
I think that as adults, I can see the way that they eat, the way that they are interested in the vegetable gardens, my recipes more often, things like that it's like, oh, you did catch that. You did catch this stuff through the year.
Yeah.
I encourage you and all of the young parents that it will work. It does set in eventually. So.
Yeah, it does. And it really does. And again, and I also think that, like, people are very negative about social media these days. And I think that there are definitely some negatives, but I think at the same time too, that young people, it's also important, right? And, I know that Instagram and all these types of things are very two-dimensional and things like that. And there's obviously some hazards to that. There's no question. But at the same time, there are some benefits. And I do think I'm a sucker for those before and after pictures of people. Like, I love those things because I know how hard that is, but I also think it's inspiring to people. And I think that, and I understand that, obviously vanity is an issue for all of us. I mean, I'm no different. And I think that there's two parts to that, right? And I think with young people today, they're really looking at that stuff. And, and optimal health, you can see it.
Yes. And I think it's important for people like you and I to come on with MS and show you can be strong still. You can look healthy. It does matter what we put in and what we do. It does matter. And I think that more, I get so tired of the Instagram photos with an arm out and an IV in. And I want to see all those. I want to see what you're doing, what you're fighting, how you're fighting. And I hope that as we work more to create groups that inspire and do things like this, that we do have more young people seeing stuff like this. And I do appreciate your creating the Hope Foundation and you continuing to come on even when you're exhausted and sharing, yes, I'm doing this run and this early, and yes, I'm doing this and I don't feel like it, but I'm doing it. You laced your shoes up and it inspired me. I was like, okay, I'm doing this run. I don't want to, but those are inspiring, and I see them, and so many others see them, and it makes you, think like, okay, I'm debating, but now I'm going to do it. And so, it may not be for all of us. Some of us, it may be that we're going to, lift some weights. We're going to do band stuff. And I think you do a good job at saying, what is that for you? Yeah. You do it. It's movement that is the important thing.
Yeah. yeah, it's breaking that sweat, right? And it's also, again, to the point, and where I try to post those types of things is that it's pushing your boundaries,
Right.
you know, and it's and that's where people, I really, if you notice, I kind of try to hit people on Friday, Saturday nights, where I'm
Yeah.
like, I know what you're doing, like I
Yeah.
know you're about to let off, and like I know it, like I'm not stupid, and I'm like,
Oh,
well, you
my
know,
Thursday class, I purposely teach it and I say, oh, don't even look at me. I know what you're gonna do this weekend. I
yeah,
know what's happening. So you don't wanna do that squat? I have no sympathy. Get down. And so
yeah,
they're like, you're so nice outside of class. And I'm like, well,
yeah. And I get it, and I'll do the early Saturday or Sunday morning ones because I know people are getting up hungover or something, and you know, and I think, you know, I've been through challenging times in my own life where I know that sometimes you need a beacon of hope to go like,
yeah,
hey, like I need to get better here. Like if this
right,
guy or this girl or whoever it is, if they're up early meditating, like I want to be that, like I want to
right,
do that, and so then
right.
show it and then allow the person to kind of find their way there if that's what they want
Yeah.
to do.
Definitely. I think it's so important and I love it. And I just anytime you want to do something together and wake me up and I'll show a screen and get ready, set, go. You run, I'll run.
Yeah.
I love to do something fun, but yeah, I love what you're doing and I really want to the last thing I wanted to discuss with you is
Sure.
modifying, let's say I put down having a broad platform like you do, and I have to be a little more careful of what I show because I train so many of our MSers and they watch what I do and they get so down on themselves about what they can't do. So I don't show all of the things I can do. I tend to be a little more cautious of showing everything. And you're able to do that, obviously, because that's what you do. We have different platforms. What do you see as risks or rewards for showing that? Any risk that you feel that people may try to do more?
No, I mean, I think that, you know, people need to understand not that people need to understand. I think it's important for me to show people what's possible,
Yeah,
right? I mean, I think that MS is obviously, it's the world in which I'm, say, most known, I guess, in the health world. But it's not just, you know, I get messages from people, emails, that's not just MS. So
right,
it's about optimal health. So,
right.
I mean, there's so many people, there's so many illnesses, there's so many things that can happen
Yes,
to you in this life. It's like, well, you need people who have, like you, like anybody else who's gone through something really challenging to stand up and say, hey, I had this, this is where I am today.
right, right.
Do I think someone's going to get up in the morning and try to run half a marathon? Probably not. If they do, am I encouraging someone to? I don't think so, right? I'm just showing my life,
Right,
and ultimately it's about people make their own choices. And
right.
I never profess to be a doctor or a professional in these
No,
ways.
no,
I
I
say,
think
like,
we're always careful about that.
yeah, here's what I do. And, you know, I think that people need to find their own limits. And especially on the exercise, I never really give advice. I try to bring people on because I don't have that expertise. And I say, look, like
Right,
you've got to figure it out for you, because
right,
each of us are different. Like each of our body types are different, like for
right,
different sports.
right.
You know, and I think that that's the thing. But I do think it's important for people to see, okay, it's this person's 45. This guy's had this disease for 20 quarter century, and he's in better shape than most people
Absolutely.
in his age range.
So if you can say one of the most rewarding, either emails or Instagram DMs that you got that some newly diagnosed or older diagnosed person sent you. I
Oh
know,
man, I
just the one that comes to your mind.
just recent, just I got
Yeah.
two. Can I tell two stories? I
Okay,
mean,
absolutely.
yeah. I mean, recently there's been one that was she's kind of dropped off now, but she was sharing her journey with me, and she started the diet, she started off kind of like, I'm just going to do this kind of thing. But within like a month, she's now washing her hair, and she wasn't washing her hair, but she couldn't even wash her hair before. And I know that sounds like a minor.
No, it's huge.
Like, but that for me, I'm like, wow, like that person couldn't wash her hair. And now within a month, she's doing this. Okay.
Yes.
And like, that was really powerful to kind of read that journey and be like, okay, wow, that really affected her life. Now, I don't want to minimize any of the other people who've written me, because I can't count. I don't even know how many people have written me similar stories, but there is one that happened that was crazy. So like a few years ago, I went to a church and I went to a support group. Okay. And I just on a whim, I don't even know why I went. And it was an MS support group, and just kind of shared and left. Anyhow, about 2 years later, I'm at the farmer's market, and this woman comes up to me and she's like, hey, how are you? I had no idea who this person was. And she's like, it's me from that group, where she had a walker.
I know you like 40,000 people,
but she was unrecognizable. Like she had lost like, I don't know, 50, 60 pounds. She had a walker. She had a walker before. It was like, and she's standing there at the farmer's market. She's like, I had a walker before. I don't need my walker anymore.
Wow. Woo!
And I'm like, what? Like, it's you? Like, I was stunned.
Awesome.
Right.
And that's just feels so good.
Yeah. And I get lots of emails. People send me their before and afters, and they write me, and, and sometimes I see them years later. Like it's, you don't know.
That's like, ooh,
That's
the one.
But I think it's really important for me to communicate. It's really important for me to talk about. I mean, I'm simply just a messenger. Like that's it.
Yeah.
Like people need to understand that. Like it's not about me. Like it's not. Like I'm a vessel for information. That's it. That God is trying to share, and that's it. Yeah. So it's like,
well, I think I feel the same way about that. So
so it's not me. I am reflecting something.
Well, I think you do a beautiful job at not ever being braggadocious about the which is why I have to ask you, like, give me your favorite emails that people have shared that you've inspired, that some of the awesome things that because you don't brag on yourself.
Well, no, it's because I'm just living it. And the thing is, what I try to share with people is that I've been chosen, so have you. So it's like you got sick because you now have the ability to get better, to lift up the people around you.
Absolutely.
But now it's on you. So you may be the next person to share it with the world. Right. Like that's it. Like I'm just trying to share the baton, and because people came before me, and so people are going to come after. But each individual who's diagnosed, and I don't care what that is. Right. It could be arthritis. It could be, I don't care what struggle you've been given. You now need to figure out how to fix it for you. And once you figured that out, you need to go share it.
Yes. Agree completely.
And the thing is this, like, and that's where the encouragement comes, because like you were chosen because you're strong enough, you're smart enough, you're disciplined enough, you're gifted enough, you've got the ability now to do it. Right. Don't honor yourself because you have that. Now it's time for you to step up and
Absolutely. Well, everything. I mean, Matt, I couldn't be more excited about the cookbook, and more excited about looking forward to all the recipes your daughter has coming up in the second one, and looking forward to the documentary for the second movie. And I find it very interesting that God is kind of reshaping your acting and stuff. So glad that you shared that with me, and couldn't be more thankful for you to be on this podcast with me. And
thank you very much.
That's just been really on my heart to develop a podcast that we really shared about movement and in all in all things, in all autoimmune things, and in all injuries, in all things that we need to move, especially after this last year. A lot of my clients that do not have autoimmune disease, but have struggled so much with their hips and their bodies and are just trying to get back into moving again, is very inspiring for them. So I appreciate you so much. And any last words that you have?
No, I mean, I guess my final words are like, it's on you, right? And I think that it's whatever choice you make right now. So if you're watching this podcast and you want to take one step forward to becoming better, take that step right now.
That's right.
It just incremental, step by step, and before you know it, you got a different life.
Yes, amen. And like we always say at the end of every podcast, we are here to disrupt your idea of movement. So we'll see you next time at Move It or Lose It. Goodbye. Have a great day. Matthew, go ahead and stay on for a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on Move It or Lose It podcast, where you can again find us every Tuesday, and also wherever you like your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Join us on that, and we can't wait to see you again. We're going to have a lot of exciting guests and working together. And as always, you'll hear us say at the end of every podcast, we are stronger together. So let's do it. Let's become stronger together.